was asked to talk about marketing. And
Talk about marketing.
exactly. And spent some time actually thinking about what to talk about, specifically on marketing. And I'm going to try and get real practical. I figured we could probably talk about real high level, strategic type stuff for 90 minutes. And that would largely be a waste of everybody's time. So I'm going to have a few high-level concepts, but really we'll try and get down to tactics that I've used over the course of 20 years of being in this industry, whether it's hardware or software, things that have worked most recently. To introduce myself, I'm Eric Daniels with Kingdom Games. I've been with Kingdom Games now for, I want to say my 1-year anniversary was like literally 2 days ago. So
Nice.
been there for a year. We launched 5 Guardians of David biblical game back in November. Things I think have gone really well. We're launching a bit of a mini sequel. You guys have heard a little bit about that. Steam page went live. So I'm going to share with you just experiences, things that have gone well, things that haven't worked, maybe some pitfalls for you to avoid, some things to do. Again, some high level stuff, and hopefully you'll find it valuable. With regard to questions, feel free to get my attention or whatever. I would love some interaction. So anything that you have to ask about, whether it's our experience on Steam. I don't know that I can go into development a whole lot because I'm marketing. So, but if you have anything that might be marketing, public relations related, anything like that, feel free to wave. I'll finish my thought and would love to answer any questions. And again, this time is for you guys. Whatever might help you put a successful game out in the marketplace. When I say successful, I'm mostly talking about making money, because I think we all have a little bit of interest in that. But you may have other motivations, and I'd certainly love to help you in any way I can on that as well. So, a little bit of what I'm going to cover. Gave you a little bit of an introduction. Going to give you a high-level marketing, a little bit of sales engine, and fundamentally practical stuff. How do you move games? What are some things that you can do that'll produce fruit? I'm going to talk about the first 3 things, the 3 things that I think are the most important. Have definitely been instrumental for us at Kingdom Games, and really I don't care how big your company is. I think these 3 things, very practical, things to focus on, build upon, good place to start, and will return dividends for you. I want to talk a little bit about success. I also feel like we have to talk about distribution. So I'm hoping that all of us can get a little excited and maybe get a little fire under us about distribution and creating a product category. Lastly, some challenges, and then I'm just going to go through line item by line item. This is the stuff that worked in marketing for us, stuff that's worked for me in the past, and this is the stuff that doesn't seem to be working when it comes to the Christian market, and even to some degree the gamer market as well. So again, any questions, feel free to pop up a hand and we will do our best. So what am I gonna, yeah.
Is your screen not working?
Oh, stinker. What do you want me to do?
Yeah, that button up right. Hey, there you go.
Hey, all right.
I see the lights.
Tack 1 for marketing. Okay. Some things that we are going to focus on, tactics, and I am going to try and go through elements that generate sales. Stuff on the right, again, I figure this is stuff you're not really interested in, probably not going to help a whole lot. We have a real diverse audience. I'm thinking some of you are probably more on the smaller side, so when it comes to corporate crap and PR and things like that, maybe a waste of time. But I'm more than willing to talk about it if you want to, so let me know. And just something, my philosophy with regard to marketing, one of the things that I really try and do with regard to my approach is marketing is about touching an audience, raising awareness, getting them to take action, and then what you would like to do is almost be able to pull your hands off the wheel and say, hey, now I have the perpetual machine running, sales are going, and now it's a community, it's an audience that's generating sales and taking care of things on their own. That's really what I think what we'd all like to get to, and of course I think it's a possibility. So And wouldn't that be great? I used that word viral. I thought you guys would really like that because that's popular in marketing. First three things, and maybe you guys have seen these acronyms before, and again, I don't really care what size you are. I think these are, the three pillars, three basic building blocks. One is a CRM, and the other is what I'm just calling approved brand copy. Just going into that, I think you've all heard about customer resource, customer relationship management, but the way we do it is you really need to build a network. And then in addition to building a network, you need to prioritize that network. Otherwise, it will consume all of your time. I thought that the guy before was really poignant when he said, marketing is work, it's a full-time job. That really is the case. So with regard to a CRM, real practical approach is an Excel file, 3 tabs, 3 tiers. Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. And the idea is everybody you want to touch starts in Tier 3. And it's simply data mining. It's going out there trying to pull contacts, looking through your past, and it is capturing email addresses and every point of contact that you can through social media, and they start in Tier 3. These are people that may have no idea who you are, what your game is, what you're about, probably don't even care at this point. But you can even have some aspirational people on there. And the idea is, these are the ones that get real baseline communication. I would say you should target like once a month. Reach out to them. We had some really good news. It surprised even me. We've been reaching out to our Tier 3s on a regular basis. Just heard back from Yogg's Cast. We've emailed them I don't know how many times. They're going to cover our game. I want to say it was about 8 or 9 emails. And I don't know about you, but when it comes to email, I try and read all of it. I try and check it all out. But there's stuff that gets through the crack. There's junk mail filters, etc. So the idea is Tier 3, low touch, but consistent. Again, once a month type of communication. And the idea is you want to generate some response from all of them, but you'll be happy with any of them. And those that show any kind of response, any kind of interaction, move them into Tier 2. And those are the ones that you want to try and develop your fans, your real base community out of those Tier 2s. So the whole point of that Tier 3 interaction is let them know what's going on, talk about who you are, what your mission is, why they should be paying attention, and as you get responses, graduate those into Tier 2. Those are the ones you want to focus on. And if you're not getting the kind of responses where, hey, maybe they're all too small, maybe they don't follow, or they're not in the audience that you're looking at, maybe you're Christian game developer and everybody who's responding is totally not a Christian, and that's really not what you're looking for. Again, you want to be somewhat targeted and try and progress the people that are going to be helpful and effective in the community up to Tier 2. And then Tier 1, these are the ones that are really going to be your super fans that you want to be able to lean on when it comes to game input, development stuff, leaking information about your game. You want to develop a level of communication so that they feel like they're a key influencer in the community and the game audience that you're building. And they can be very powerful advocates for you and your company and your game. I would say a couple of great examples of how this has been done well. If you guys are familiar with the Lord of the Rings movies, they did a fantastic job of engaging the community. Here they were, Peter Jackson's doing this film. People know the story really well. They have all kinds of opinions on how it should be told. No, I don't think there should be a love interest. You need to follow letter by letter, blah, blah, blah. They did a fantastic job of engaging the community, pulling those fans in, engaging them, informing them. And so when they came out with finished product, that community was a huge supporter of the overall project, when instead they could have been really dissatisfied, could have spent a lot of time griping, and a lot of times griping really comes from, hey, I feel like I got my feelings hurt because you didn't treat me right. So develop that community. Again, 3-tiered approach, real simple, and also will help you focus on how to meter out your time. Automated emails for Tier 3 and then more personal interaction, social media interaction with tier 1, and personal leaked secret information where you're equipping those key influencers. I don't know about what you guys think about that last line, but I know I have helped a lot of not-for-profits just because I want to see the kingdom built, and there's no reason why, if you can't devote the time, you couldn't find someone to help. You know, you mentioned your wife. There's a lot of people out there that want to break into community management. They want to break into the gaming industry. Maybe they're a Christian, but what they want to do also is exactly all along the lines of what you're looking for. They want to build a community and network, so after they graduate or when they start to take it more seriously and want to do it full time, they'll have a bit of a network that they can lean on and be successful with. A lot of big time jobs now when it comes to community management and applying, key questions are, how big a community following can you bring? Hey, if you want to get on with us, we want to see social media interactions, and we want to see 10,000 retweets, or we want to see 10,000 likes, et cetera, et cetera. You have to prove that you have that following, and so you're going to be the ones that can enable them to begin that process. So it's something that I think you can do relatively easily in kind of a low touch model. It's something that if you don't like doing, you can always find someone to help, and also feel like you're helping them move forward from a career perspective. Any questions about CRM? Or you guys are just love that. Tim.
I like your spreadsheet approach. Would you steer people away from the professional?
Yeah.
Because I've tried a few of them, and the overhead, and it's real clunky, and it takes more time than it seems like it should.
Exactly. I wouldn't
like Salesforce.
I wouldn't overcomplicate it. We've done Salesforce. We've done a lot of the big tools. They're very powerful. You can integrate all kinds of marketing campaigns, whether it's email advertising and other kind of marketing efforts. But really, if you're just starting out, starting with Excel, there's very little overhead, which is key. It's simple. You understand it. It's something that can be shared throughout your working organization. People can also add to it. So I would recommend just sticking with Excel. And then if you get more sophisticated and you got 50,000 followers or something like that, and you're trying to do integrated campaigns, then yeah, pay for Salesforce. But I think Excel will do the trick right off the bat. It should be fine for at least a year or two. Yeah. Yeah, so what I would say is, again, starting off, I would go after one of those free or very low cost. Salesforce has a pretty good reputation. Problem with them is, as you're trying to build an audience, they have thresholds for bounce rates and things like that. You're not going to necessarily have qualified lists and things like that, so you might have some difficulty even if you pay them, because they don't want their ISP blacklisted because of email bounce rates and things like that. MailChimp and others are real easy to use. They're also low cost, even free, and until you get to a certain contact limit, you're good to go. And if you're talking about using it on a once a month, couple times a month type thing, works beautifully, provides you analytics, tells you who's responding, opening, clicking, and then again allows you to quickly and easily progress them through that tiered CRM system.
CGDC, so that.
Yeah. I mean, you definitely do want to use a mass email distribution tool. I just wouldn't pay for it because there are very good free alternatives out there, or really low cost alternatives
Is
out
there a
there.
couple names that we could check out?
MailChimp was one that we used successfully. There's another one that's,
Constant Contact seems to have won the battle as far as.
well, so they're, I don't know that they have a free one, and also,
It's free up to 50 users, but
Okay.
I've maxed my number of users already. That's why I was wondering about paying for it.
yeah, you're going to want to, again, starting with that tier 3 base, if you can come up with a bot that'll go out and scrape email addresses off of websites and grab contact information. Otherwise, you're going to want to go out, go to YouTube channels, Twitch streamers, press, editors, maybe even Christian organizations, and you're going to want to pull all of those contacts in, and you should have a list of 500, 1,000 or more people in that tier 3 base.
Now, when it comes to scraping info and mailing them, I'm wondering about like the click rates for like So far, I've only compiled lists from like if people enter in their email address on my webpage, like.
Yeah.
But if I go and like swipe, I don't know. I've been leery of.
That's exactly how we got
Okay.
all of our YouTube coverage. Our largest whales have been from this simple approach and reaching out via email.
But they go first to your site and enter their info, or
No,
you
we
just
went, and
you
a lot
added
of,
them.
because all of these streamers and influencers, they're constantly looking for new content, new games. That's how they maintain their relationship with their community. They are an influencer. They want to get information first. They want to be the ones to share that information first. So you fundamentally have a good point of contact if your game is new, unreleased. You want to be reaching out to them, and they want to hear what you have to say. Just realize there's 100 other game developers that are sending them email and trying to get coverage. And so that's where it's one of those situations where you just need to keep pinging away, banging away, and you will build that community. It will happen. It will happen over time. They will move up into tier 2s. And then as you develop reputation as a reliable studio, somebody who does good work, someone that can be relied upon, you'll then have that relationship, and it'll be that much easier the next time. And I'll have some stuff on open rates and click through and so on.
Oh, and are these slides available?
I'll make them available. Oh, and I was going to say something to Michael and or Tim. There's a number of companies out there that sell email lists, and I don't know if you guys have considered this for a fundraising perspective, but I think from a gaming community, we would all like to be sharing information, helping each other, and if you guys have studio contacts, press, editors, all of this stuff, that would be a great resource to share among all of us so that we can go out and inform them, again, because they want to be equipped with, hey, what's new stuff that's happening out there? I want to cover stuff. I have a Twitch stream coming up, or I have a YouTube video I have to make. So it's definitely a back and forth two-way street with them. I'm going to move to approved brand copy here real quick. And again, this is a basic. And the idea is, again, I would take the Excel approach real easy. Different tabs. And the idea is you want to populate just quick, short sound bites on your company. It's everything that you think is cool to say at a moment's notice. And the idea is you have all of this stuff sitting in a central repository when it comes to creating email or interacting with a new person. You're not reinventing the wheel every time you have this information at your fingertips. It's that much easier to use, and you can also delegate it a lot easier. Everybody knows, hey, I got this stuff I can say whenever I need to. It's easy to talk about. So it's stuff about your company, whether it's mission statement, core values, past titles you've worked on, successes, things like that. Sound bites on the game specifically.
So you're not just talking about uniform messaging and style, you're talking about also making your job easier to respond.
Yes.
Okay. So
I gotta say, I've found that is one of the biggest time wasters, especially as an organization grows. It's fear, apprehension of good, golden information. And so if you constantly, maybe you come up with fantastic email, get some good responses, or some type of interaction, could be content, copy on your website. The idea is, hey, people are responding to this. It's something that I want to share with them. I don't want to lose it. I'm going to pull it into this central repository, and that way it can be multiplied and used by others over and over and over again. And that success can be repeated. So it's not just, hey, this is what my company's about, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But this is what my game's about. These are the things I want to say about my game, equipping the people in your organization, whether you have an intern or a co-op that's helping you out. Then elements of your game specifically, whether it's particular characters that you want to have, certain copy or things that you want to communicate, game mechanics, story setting. The other things that are really important, and this is something that's very, very powerful and very useful, but anything and everything that's said about your game out in the public, you want to pull sound bites from that you think would be helpful in emphasizing you're reliable, you make a good product, and people should be interested in. So going out to pastors, getting endorsements from them, again, goes into that ABC. If there's a review written about your game, pull out the great excerpts, the one-liners, the things that can be shared, communicated. You want to pull those out again, keep them in that EBC. And then if there's any other game coverage, there's a ton of them, game wikis, could be Steam reviews, could be other comments, editorials, all things of that nature. Again, pull that content in so that you can use it easily, because you're trying to create a machine that runs on a regular basis. Again, going out to those tier 3s, if you're going to reach them on a monthly basis, you need to have something to say to them. And preferably you want to have something new to say to them, because the last thing you said maybe didn't get their attention. Well, maybe this new thing that happened, hey, this guy reviewed my game, this is what he said. Maybe this is a pretty good game. I should maybe take a look at this. So pulling all that information into a place where your entire team can use it quickly and easily, I have found has been tremendously empowering and also a tremendous time saver. And again, helps to move that community out of the tier 3 up into where they're engaged tier 2, and then maybe a super fan tier 1 type thing. I'm just going to keep rolling. Vivian.
Would you recommend like putting this sort of thing on a blog post, on a web page as
No.
well?
No.
Or this is like,
This is raw,
Private
unformatted
templates
Excel,
for-
and then when you want to present it to the community, that's when you want to format it a little bit, work with wordsmithing perhaps a little bit, but the idea is have this raw thing that's real easy to maintain,
Like
and
a
then when it
template
comes to
kind.
communicating, pull it out, pretty it up a little bit, but you're not really having to, like really use your brain for coming up with new words and stuff like that. It's all there, tweaking and getting it looking good, and then sending it out to those people that you want to influence. The other thing, press kit. If you want to have any kind of interaction with really any media of any size, you need to have a press kit. You want to have it in 2 forms. One is on your website. I have provided here a do press kit from that Rami Ismail guy. That's the guy we used. Real easy, real straightforward. Template, put it on your website. Make it real easy to find. Any media that has 10 seconds, like, maybe I'll check that out. Make that press kit real easy to find. And just follow his template, and here's how you present your game. It's also in a format that they're used to seeing, so they're able to digest it that much easier. They don't have to go through and try, okay, what's this game about? And what kind? Is this an RPG? What's the SRV rating? You just follow that template, and again, the media is able to digest it that much easier. Also, when something's formatted, it's going to be easier for you guys to use as well. So you want to put that on your website, and then the other thing is have that in your back pocket, PDF, Word doc, whatever, and that would be another thing that you would want to send out on some kind of a regular basis, again, to those tier 3s. Maybe they didn't open your email before, so you want to make sure you send that, and that way they can, again, quickly, easily get to know, hey, this is what the game's about, is this kind of in my sweet spot, and they can figure out whether they want to cover it or not. Press kit question? Everybody loves press kits. I'm going to pop up to high level stuff now. And I've heard this touched on by a number of people. They've also indicated it's incredibly important. I totally agree. And that is kind of the main cornerstones of why you're doing what you're doing. And I would break it down into these 4 things because I think it's simplest. But I think you want to first consider your audience. Are you going after gamers? Are you going after Christians? Are you going after cooks or chefs or kids or 65 AARP types? I mean, I don't know. What is your audience? Who do you think you're trying to reach as a company and as a game? Have that clearly defined. And then message. Why are you doing this? Why are you making games? I know for me, there's a lot of personal satisfaction in putting something out there that's faith-based, that's biblical, that can reach people, potentially change their lives. That's incredibly powerful to me. But I will also be quite honest with you, I expect to make money. And that's one of the key things. And I think if you have employees talking about this kind of thing, because you may have employees where you're just trying to save the lost, and they're trying to feed their family and make some money. So these are the kind of things that you need to talk about, because it is an incredibly debilitating dynamic when something happens and you're excited. Hey, somebody just accepted Jesus as their Lord and Savior. And the other people in the room are kind of like, hey, because they know or fear that something's going to happen because the business isn't successful because of money, or that's not a priority for them, or whatever the case is. So clarifying your message, and I would like to point out a couple of things. One is talk about how overt you want to be. You know, do you want to be quoting scripture? Do you want to be talking about what's happening, you know, in Yemen, or to Christians around the world? Or, I mean, how overt do you want to be with the Christian message? Or do you want to take a more covert, hey, I want to present Christian principles, but I don't need to say Jesus, 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 Jesus every 3 words. So that's another thing to talk about. What's your overarching message and point for what you're doing? And I think establishing overt, covert, and that kind of messaging does a really good job of clarifying with the entire team, hey, what are we really about? It's kind of like with a church. You know, there are churches that are seeker-friendly. There are churches that are Bible-based, and there are churches that are trying to put missions into other countries. And so that's kind of the approach that you're taking is, hey, what are we doing with regard to the gospel, and where does it fit with regard to the passion of the company? The other two, I'd talk about story specifically. And again, this has to do with the product and how does the Christian message fit into the product. So you have Christian message with regard to your company and so on, but really what are you trying to do with this particular product? And I've noticed, you know, a lot of times we have these fantastic games, and it's not a Bible scripture game. It's not a sword drill. It's not, you know, I want to proselytize and convert you, but instead it's, hey, I got this fantastically fun game idea. I happen to be a Christian. Hey, so, you know, this is going to be safe for your kids, and it's going to be a good game. So that would be the other element. Company, what's going on with regard to the story elements of your game and what you're trying to communicate. And then I would say lastly, where does money fit in this whole thing? Because it's often a key topic for the people who are in business with you or partnered with you. It's, hey, how does money fit in? Or is this something where we're trying to make money? Is this something where we're volunteering? So I'll be honest with you, I do a ton of volunteer work. And if I know going in it's volunteer, then there's no miscommunication with regard to priorities. But if it's something different where, no, I didn't think we were volunteering, I thought we were in this together and we're going to be millionaires and drive Lamborghinis and, you know, whatever, it's good to have that straightened out up front. So define the main thing. All right, I'll try and get down to some more specifics. And this maybe goes a little bit to the challenge of marketing Christian games. Should I just ask if there's any questions? I feel like I'm just kind of... Okay, I'll just... Yeah.
I guess I can ask, from your perspective, how is it when you are very clearly a volunteer team, everybody knows they're a volunteer team, but they also know you're trying to get to a point where you can make money? Because I see that people, they know they're volunteer, and up front they know they're volunteer, and they're giving their gifts and talents to the Lord, but over time they're like, I still have to feed my family, and eventually they wear out because
Yes.
they hope that money is going to come sooner than it ever really does.
And so I think burnout is one of those things that affects the volunteer community across the board, whether it's secular or Christian, and that's exactly what you're talking about, where we both feel like we're going to volunteer for a period of time, but the overall business plan is for this thing to turn into some kind of money-making endeavor. And setting out kind of what that schedule is, I won't say business plan, but to some degree it is. It's, hey, here's what we're going to do. You know, we're going to develop during this time, going to be a real volunteer. There's no way for us to bring in income, although we're trying for investors or whatever the case is. be real upfront with regard to what you're looking for. Hey, we're going out to investors, we're going to do it during this month. Here are the people that we're talking to. Here's what we're hoping that they say. And let them know, hey, in 2023, we're going to go live with this product, and we're going to be set up for 1 million online users to be coming on and playing concurrently, and that's when you'll get your Lamborghini. Or, no, this is going to be a labor of love. I'm doing this because I'm passionate about games and I want to reach the lost, or whatever the case is. And they can be encouraged about the same things that you're encouraged, and they can also help you when you're getting a little discouraged. You can help them when they're getting a little discouraged, because it's very clear what you're working for.
Right, yeah, so they've been working a long time, and then they get to a point where they're like, they just don't want to work anymore. They want me to figure out a way to make money without them having to volunteer anymore.
Yeah.
And that's where, where we get to, through cycles, and we're at one of those places again, where they still want to help, but they don't want to work anymore. They want me to pay them now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but we have this much left to go, can we please just finish this last little bit? So then we can,
Well, and that's
it's
where-
hard, it's really hard.
Having that schedule
Yeah.
and
But the schedule breaks when they stop working, that's the problem.
well, there's some. I will recommend one book to you. Turn This Ship Around. There's a bunch of leadership books out there, but
Yeah, I've read a few of them, but I haven't
Turn the
read
Ship
that one.
Around was. I'm not all the way through, but it has some really good practical stuff from this Navy sub-commander about one of the problems that we're having across the country and maybe globally, and that is, how do you engage people's passion and keep them at peak performance over extended periods of time? And so he talks about the techniques that he's used, so I'd recommend that one right off.
That sounds great, thanks.
So I'm not sure what to really say about this otherwise, but I'm not sure what to say about it specifically, but I did want to introduce it. Hopefully there's a seed of encouragement in here, in what I'm presenting and what I'm saying. And that is that the Christian gaming market is not immune to the challenges of the Christian community. When you look at this, I was just looking at, it's something that churches have talked about literally for years, and that is, hey, as kids grow up and mature, go into high school, college, a lot of them turn away from their faith and look for other things. So with regard to the Christian gaming community, let's not be surprised by that. There are some real challenges there. So I want us all to some degree have our eyes wide open that as these gamers, as they mature, biblical stories and things that are heavily Bible-based are definitely a bigger challenge when it comes to sales and business models and things like that, because a lot of the gamers that we're trying to reach, let's be honest, they're right in this age group. So this is the age group that right now is really starting to struggle with, what do I do with Christianity? Do I even want to be involved? And it's definitely a problem for the church. Let's not be surprised that it's a problem for us. And it's a dynamic that's going on in our industry. So I mostly just wanted to present that information as a, hey, let's be steely-eyed about this and let's be realistic. This is what's going on. And things are going to be a little harder. Some might say substantially more difficult, but things are going to be a little harder for a Christian game developer and someone with that Christian message going to a community that for whatever reason tends to drift away from the Christian message and then hopefully come back. But I wanted to make sure I said that. It's something that, it's a dynamic that we're interacting with in terms of putting out a specifically Bible story-oriented biblical account of David type game. Did you have a?
Yeah, well, I was gonna ask a question, maybe you. So based upon that worldview that you just explained, how does that change how you market your own game?
So that's exactly the question that we asked, and this is what we did. And we had a lot of discussions with main investor and the executives in the company, and ultimately, what I would say is, when it comes to describing Kingdom Games, we've tried to come up with a message that is more moral than Christian. And one of the things that made this a little easier, and we can talk in more detail, again, I'm available, I'm here the whole time, love to chat with you guys about any elements of Christianity or gaming or whatever. But so we said, this game, Five Guardians of David, it's hard to miss the tie into the Bible. This is obviously a biblical game. It's got King David, it's set in Israel, all the trappings. Most everybody knows, the underdog story of all time, David and Goliath. So felt like we don't have to beat that drum because it's very prevalent in the game message. And so as a company, what we've tried to do is say, hey, we want to provide quality products, we want to do fantastic games, we love games, we're passionate about games, and we want to do games that you can trust, but have tried not to beat too heavily on the Christian, Jesus, Bible. Because again, it's inherent to the product. Now, some of you may be doing different type projects, different type games, and maybe you're going to come up with a different type solution, but that's where we ultimately settled with regard to the identity of the company, the products that we want to do, and the priorities.
So I guess the obvious follow-on question is, has that worked for you?
To a degree it has, and to a degree it hasn't. I'll go to press kit and some other things where I feel like we came out with a message that was very clear, very concise with regard to who we were. However, this is something that we've experienced with regard to our community, press, etc. When you get involved with biblical accounts, what's going on in the Bible, Old Testament, any of that stuff, people very quickly jump to conclusions. You're pressing their button in some degree, and they're going to say, oh, they're a Christian company, or they're heretics, or they're going to find all kinds of stuff wrapped around religion, because it really is a tinderbox when it comes to discussion for a lot of very vocal people. But I don't want that to dismay you. I would say overall, our interactions with the community have been very positive. We had a handful of, James, should we share some with you guys tomorrow? We had a handful of, just some really whacked, unusual responses. But I feel like we handled that really well. It definitely was something that mice nuts in comparison to what's going on. And I would say overall, our community interaction has been really, really good. And I would just, when it comes to tips of how to handle that, generally speaking, go with a one response rule. Somebody comes up with something. If it's obviously toxic and you can just let it go, ban it, whatever. But I would say for the most part, we try to interact at least once with every community-generated interaction. So we will respond once. And then as a policy, it's, hey, we said what we were going to say, and we're done. And I would say whether it's good, bad, or anything else, the one response rule works really, really well. Then what sometimes happens is, you might have community members that kind of get into it, and then it's pretty obvious, like, hey, we're not talking about games, we're not talking about anything productive, we just have two people that are kind of sniping, you can move that conversation offline. But I would say, overwhelmingly, things have gone well on the community side, so take that as a positive. Maybe I'm going to skip over this slide here because we've talked so much about it with regard to the CRM. But one of the things that you're going to do when it comes to marketing and when it comes to developing an audience, you want to have a community for them to join. If you don't have a community, it's really hard to create one with them on the fly. So the idea is whether it's your employees, other contacts that you've made, but what you want to do is create a community that exists where people genuinely like talking to each other, they genuinely like hanging out, they have some similar interests, and they have some things to say about what it is you're doing, whether it's your product or your company. So have a semblance of a community. It doesn't matter if it's 3 people or 3,000 people. Have a semblance of a community, again, going back to that CRM, build that so that you can pull others into, no matter how big it is, a community for them to interact with and join and have that sense of connection. It's going to be very hard for you to do it all by yourself. just alone, because again, you need to have some level of interaction for people to join in and contribute to. I think I mentioned ABCs. Any questions about that? I don't want to read slides to you guys because I figure most everybody in here can read. I do a pretty good job generally. Okay, I'll move on.
As far as community, sorry, it's like, well, what does that look like? I guess for my like small indie game shop, I'm kind like a Facebook page, like represents. Like,
I'm going to get into each one of the outlets, but here's what I would recommend. Try and develop a company across all of those outlets or fronts. Try Facebook, try Twitter, try Twitch, try YouTube, try Vine, Pinterest, whatever. Try as many of them as you can and see what audience starts to resonate, whether it's your small community that you begin to develop just in your professional life, and then as people come in and tack on. But what I would say is try and attack all of them if you can, and what you'll do is you'll see one or more start to grow and exhibit more engagement, more interaction. Generically, I would say Facebook seems to do better with the faith-based community. Twitter seems to do better with the more gamer-oriented community. That's just what I've experienced. I did want to talk about distribution, and I would love for us to all try something. I was really impressed with Michael's presentation when he was talking about how many Christian developers are here, how many Christian or faith-based or titles from a Christian company or from a founder who's a Christian. There's a lot of game content out there, and we do not have a product category, nor do we have any kind of distribution system, and instead all of us are having to reach out and try and reach into other mechanisms to sell games. Specifically, we've talked a little bit about Steam. There are some others out there, but really Steam is the big boy when it comes to PC gaming. That's what I'm most familiar with. And part of it is I don't think the Christian retailers really understand that there are an incredible number of quality products out there that their users and the kids of their users would be very interested in buying. And if they understood the business model of digital delivery and the fact that there's no inventory, no product cost, no warehouses, none of that stuff, I feel like we could create a product category where we would not be, when I say we, the Christian game development community, would not be in here trying to figure out how to interact with Steam necessarily, but instead there would be a distribution mechanism, and we would instead be clamoring for, hey, how do I get onto Lifeway, or how do I get onto some of these other faith-based, Christian-oriented that are aligned with the message retailers. And I know that's a bit of a challenge. I think I have some other stuff in here, but basically what I'm trying to say is the Christian game, the Christian video game product category does not exist at this point. And we have the opportunity to create this product category. And one of the things that we need is a distribution channel for that faith-based content that I know there's an audience out there. Although I will caveat and say, I feel like with the game that we have right now and for the foreseeable future, we at Kingdom Games, we're going to sell more games to gamers than we are to Christians. And I would say that's primarily because I don't know how to get to Christians as easily as I know how to get to gamers. I can get to 10 million gamers. 10 million Christians? That takes some money and some time. And I mean, it can be built over time, but it's definitely, it feels like harder work because they're more dispersed.
I've got a name.
Okay.
And to pun a phrase, we've got a cloud of witnesses.
There you go.
So the gamer's cloud of witnesses.
There you go. I'm in, baby. And I do want to give, I would like to us all to try and take the challenge of, there's no reason why we can't go to Lifeway, and I have a list of these distributors, and when you're back doing what you're doing Monday morning, send them an email, put them in your CRM tier 3. I've got a game, I want to create a product category, there's no inventory for it, digital delivery just like a podcast, don't you want to do this? I would hope that if they got 50 of those emails next week, somebody at Lifeway might go, you think we could maybe make some money? Because I was genuinely surprised, Michael, and I think they would be too. So I'm just going to kind of put a bee in people's ears, and I will send more emails again Monday.
So you're talking about Twitter shaming them, right?
No, I'm just emailing them. Just,
Yeah, I know.
hey, blah, blah, blah.
It's sort of the equivalent of that.
So in case you guys...
Huh?
They have no Twitter.
That's true.
EA has a bad reputation. Why am I not surprised?
So I almost want to put like you and Seth in a room together. I know that you were Seth's talk this morning.
Yeah.
And one of the things he talked about was the people that control those corporations or those companies, those organizations, because of their demographic and because of their makeup, they're not open to that. So I guess my question to you would be, how do we overcome that, even if we email them?
And Seth, I think, has a lot more experience with interacting with them than I do. But what I will say is, product category creation is hard because it doesn't exist. People don't have a grid for it. It really doesn't matter. I'll just make this assertion. It doesn't matter who they are, what their background is. They don't know that this thing is a thing. And so that's where the hard tilling of the ground has to take place, because you're trying to convince them, hey, this is really a thing, and I know you don't know about it, and I know there's not really a grid for you to figure out what this is. And so that's going to be the challenge. But I would say I'd love to come back here next week and hear of at least the inklings of a product category that's existing in the Christian world, where all of those retailers that are out there selling worship CDs and other Christian entertainment content also have a games piece.
We had the presentation like spiritual warfare, and a whole bunch of others I still don't forget, but those old school puzzle games all based on the Bible. And however bad or good anybody thought they were back in the day, they've left a bad taste in many people's mouths, Christian and secular alike, because the quality of the product itself is not that good. And now we've got a string of movies that, for good intentions, may or may not be up to par with all the rest of the secular movies, just in terms of product quality, not necessarily content. So now we've got to get over, now we have, people have an idea of Christian media. We have to overcome the idea that, oh, it's Christian, automatic assumption that it's going to be lackluster.
Yeah.
So, and we're seeing here that that's not the case. We have a lot of top quality games, but the problem is not only getting out there that people be aware of it, but also to overcome their initial impression. Oh, that's Christian, that's Bible? No, I don't want to, that didn't do so well then. Why would I want to invest in another egg, a rotten egg?
Yeah, I was listening to the Steam conversation. There were some questions about pricing, and I think I have some stuff in here about that. But I was surprised, and I'll just call it the Christian discount. When we launched 5, I was surprised even at the secular level. So this is almost exclusively dealing with, a secular community. They had a very acute opinion of Christian entertainment, and it was not very divergent from mine. And by the way, I go watch Christian movies, I pay box office tickets, I buy games, I buy books, I buy CDs, because I want to see the market develop, and it is getting better. But I was surprised. There is an inherent perceived quality issue out there, and it does affect the overall ASP that you can sell a faith-based product at. And we can talk about conversion rates and so on, but if you go out there and you do a competitive analysis of where you sit price position-wise against similar products, if you have a smacking of Christian entertainment, there's an expectation that you will be of lower quality, and that's going to impact the overall price that you can sell at. I'm going to hop back just real quick to distributors. You all know Steam. You probably recognize a lot of these. Really, once you get on Steam, moving to Amazon, Green Man, and others is that much easier. Steam is the big dog in the market. I think everybody knows that. Here's some on the Christian side, ones that I've looked at. As you can see, size-wise, substantially smaller, but still, I think we'd all love for our product to be sitting in front of, tens of hundreds of thousands of Christian shoppers that have kids. And I don't know if they're going to buy games, but I will say this. I think all of us have a better chance of selling games through these distributors than trying to do all of the mechanisms that we can do to try and drive Christians to our own individual websites and buy there. Yes?
So just looking at the graph, what has been your experience with, say, Christian Book and Lifeway?
They don't have a group for it, and part of it is contacts. I don't have any contacts at Christian Book, Lifeway, or anybody else that I can talk to, try and educate, try and influence, try and share with them the business model, because I truly believe this is something that will make all of us more successful, them included. There is money in this. The gaming market is enormous. I can share with them my personal testimonies and others of how I would, when my kids were smaller, I would have been much more open to them playing games if I knew these were the titles that were out there and available, because at the time I was like, no, Mom, I don't want you to buy my kids a PlayStation right now because I don't want to deal with GTA and all the other stuff. So at any rate, I'll make slides available. These are links. Again, you can pull email addresses. In fact, I'll try and pull them and provide them just so you have it. Typically, 30% is the cut that a distributor takes. So whatever you're charging for your game, think about that. It's like, hey, that's money in their pocket, and there's no product, no inventory, none of that. I do feel like since this is a marketing thing, I need to show some colorful, charts and stuff. The key thing that I think you want to take away from this slide and just from our analysis, and again, I'm talking about PC digital distribution, market is flat, and so when it comes to game selling on Steam, you need to come into the game thinking, I have to convince someone to not buy that game and instead buy my game. It's not a growing market at this point where people are going to just suck up games and buy products that are out there and fit a description. It is very competitive, it is flat, and you are having to steal revenue from others. So that puts on us, again, that onus with regard to pricing. Probably going to have to be more aggressive until you get established. That's just something to keep in mind. I don't know what more I can put around that commentary other than it's a really tough market. So I'll just tell you universally, I'm open to talking to everybody here about cross-promotional activities and whatever we can do to help any one of you. We'll do what we can. And to your point, that's one of the things that you should really work out with regard to your company. A very popular tactic is FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. It's one of those things where, hey, I want to sling some mud, get you scared and worked up so that you'll turn to me and trust me, buy my product, whatever the case is. We had some real honest conversations about that at every company I've been at, and I would say almost across the board, whether they're secular or faith-based, there really has been a trend to, no, we're not here to slam others. We're believing that as the tide rises, all boats rise with it. So we want to be encouraging, we want to be generous, and we want to focus on the positives and not go to what I would call are typically very successful FUD-type techniques. So exactly what you're saying is something that I've seen happen more and more prevalently.
And what is FUD stand for? Fear, uncertainty, doubts, and what?
Fear, uncertainty, and doubt, yeah.
Oh, and doubt.
I also just wanted to touch on this because this is something that we noticed because Christian gaming, and again I'm going to continue to make this assertion, because Christian gaming as a category doesn't exist, it's very hard to figure out how many Christian gamers there are, or how many will buy a game strictly because of its biblical or Christian trappings. It's difficult to say. However, if you look at the two markets, it's pretty obvious that they are divergent. The gamer market and when I say Christian market, what I'm really talking about are people who attend church regularly, because that's a stat that can be tracked. Also indicates that there's some level of familiarity with faith, the Bible, and Christian concepts as well. So what you do when you look at the market, you see that the gamer market and the Christian quote-unquote market are two very different markets. I can also say with regard to our personal experience, the gamer market is not a Christian market, and it doesn't seem like the Christian market is necessarily a gamer market. And I can talk more about that if you want to. I don't really want to muddy the waters, but what I am trying to say is that's something to be aware of when it comes to audience and how you reach your audience. And that's another reason why as you go out through your outlets and try and develop your audience, you're going to see certain things start to develop, whether it's on Twitter or Facebook, and what people prefer or don't prefer, where they engage and where they don't. I'm going to get into, mention Keymailer. What worked, what didn't? So on the left, these are the techniques that seem to work for the Christian market. And again, I'm coming at this from a PC games perspective. And then on the right, what goes on for gamers and the more secular Steam community. So for the most part, when I talk to people, faith-based, go to church, Christian conferences, I mean, it is like single-digit percentage if they know about Steam or what Steam is. I would say there also seems to be an anecdotal preference for Xbox over PlayStation. But when it comes to PC gaming and Steam, like, hey, I'll give you 1 million Steam keys and you can sell these on the gray market and make, tons of money. And they're just, I don't even know what you're talking about. Steam, what, huh? So no idea what Steam is. Steam's not going to help you, or I should say, in our experience, Steam was not very helpful for reaching the Christian game community. Beautiful when it comes to the gaming side of the house. And I'm going to go through each one of these, but before I kind of jump in, you guys have a preference if you want to talk about anything in particular? So when it comes to AdWords and your traditional SEO techniques, not that you don't want to do sensible, responsible things, which I'll go into, but there is no material, I should say from my experience rather, from my experience, there's no material traffic to garner from SEO or AdWord activity. People are not, have I tried every term? No, but Christian games, Christian video games, Bible video games, and there's a little bit on the Bible kids side. I'm thinking mostly for casual, your kind of stuff. Good shot, man. But when it comes to PC games, we ran some short, relatively low-cost tests, and there was no traffic really to pick up. All that stuff, when it comes to PC, they are going through Steam to find games, or they are searching on known titles, known AAA titles, and they're not looking for, they're not searching on the kind of terms that I can buy at a reasonable rate and expect a reasonable return.
Can you talk a little bit, you say advertorials, I'm not familiar with that, explain that a little bit.
So, advertorials, this is something that's very popular. You see them a lot in magazines. Sometimes if they're really well done, you don't even necessarily know they're an advertorial. But the idea is you or someone you know or love is going to put a piece together that somehow goes into your product as a solution to a problem, or providing some kind of thing that people are interested in, and it has a tone and a feel of informative, third-party, objective, very soft sell kind of message where you're not, hey, buy my game, it's $19.99 or $14.99 or whatever the cost is, and instead comes across as, hey, there's this social issue or cultural issue, and don't you wish your kids got more involved in the Bible, and there's a recent study in these video and Uverse and games, and oh yeah, and by the way, there are some of these games out there, and here they are, and here's where you can get them, type thing. The advertorial, email, and editorial stuff we found has been the most successful when it comes to reaching the Christian audience. If you go out and reach out to a media company, and I would recommend if you want to sell your game, I recommend that you at least try and go out and reach a few marketing firms, advertising firms, media companies that represent websites, and get their rates. They want to sell to you, and if you ask them, hey, how much would it cost for me to get my game in front of 100,000 people over these 3 weeks, they'll tell you yeah, this is what we would place and this is how much it would cost, and you know, I'll give you some numbers on how to run, whether that would be profitable or not. I'll let you know it probably won't be, but you can go and get that information. It's good to have. And I would also say when it comes to advertising, if you're looking to do any advertising, I would say start small, test, find things that work, expand those things that work. Don't dive in, you know, to the pool with a big cannonball splash. Instead, try and find some niches that work for you and then expand on those. Advertorials, again, one of those things that works really well, especially when you talk about biblical accounts, faith-based stuff, curriculum, homeschool. We found that there's a real affinity for faith-based products, even for games, when you're going out in that fashion. I would specifically say the homeschool community has been very receptive.
Have you tried doing it in the movie theaters? Because they always have place your ad here kind of thing. And I have some data, but I would say most of what I'm about to say is anecdotal. Yeah.
What I have found, or what we have found, is it is tough to convert for a PC product if they are not on a PC. And so if you have a PC game, if you go out and do a lot of mobile placements, you're going to have a hard time getting them off the phone and making the purchase for their PC, where they would have to, you know, experience and play the game. So those kinds of things we've done a little bit on the traditional side. That's where I would call, you know, billboards and things like that. And I just haven't seen the returns for it, but that doesn't mean it couldn't work. I guess I'll just kind of leave it at that unless you need more detail.
No, that's good.
Okay. Videos. Well, I'll just kind of, am I out of time? Do I need, what? All right, I'll just kind of keep bumbling through here. So on the gamer side, your PC, you really want to get on Steam. It seems like Valve is de-emphasizing Greenlight. It's real spotty on what you need to do to get through there. What I will say is, here the conversation that we had about Greenlight was, honestly, it was just a chance we weren't willing to take. We were like, hey, we were ready to be on Steam. We understand that there are potential benefits going through Greenlight with regard to community building, but honestly, we need to be on Steam so we can move units. There is a business element to this, and I don't want to leave my future up to a bunch of potential nut jobs. So we did not do Greenlight. Now, what I can say is I've heard Greenlight working very well for a number of studios and titles. You know, I would say, hey, if you feel like you have the kind of product that would play well there, again, what we found is this is 5 Guardians of David. It is right out of the Bible. It's in the Old Testament. We have Bible references. We have scripture in there. Obviously, Bible, religion, Jesus is all there. And we did not want to kind of try and manage that process out in an open forum like that, where if your message is potentially more covert or you're allegorical or something like that, you can probably do really well on Greenlight. But that was just our experience. Here's the reason you want to be on Steam. It is a beautiful machine. It is far better than any other distribution system that we've worked with. Not that we've worked with a million of them, but they do a fantastic job of putting new studios and new content in front of people to look at and make a purchase decision on. I mean, we had, over the course of the first 6 weeks, we had 250,000 visits to our Steam store page for people to look at our game and go, do I want to buy that? I don't know, $4.99, or whatever their issue or whatever they were impressed with. From a marketing perspective, that's just beautiful. I mean, I can't tell you how much that kind of traffic would cost. And if you were trying to get 250,000 people to your website so they could look at your game, you're going to spend a lot of money. So at any rate, this is just what we experienced with regard to raw numbers. Steam sales pricing, incredibly important. I would say you definitely want to target Steam sales with heavy discounts. Again, you can maintain price, is my perspective, and hit those Steam sales. That's when people seem to want to buy. I would also say, this is a little bit bad news, Steam has conditioned people to wait for sales. So unless you are a recognized studio, recognized title, known entity, people are probably going to wait until you go on sale for some number. And I would say we ran a number of models to try and figure out how many people we think buy at full price versus don't. And I'll just throw a number out there. I would say 80% of the gamers out there do not buy games at full price. So however big you think the market is, it's a fifth that size at full price. And then they don't. Here's some stuff with regard to conversion. You guys were talking about pricing. The chart on the left shows percentage of people that convert at different price points. And I would say, conversion sub $10 is much better than higher price points. That shouldn't really shock you, but you can at least see the size of the bar and the magnitude. What this would suggest is price under 10 versus under 20, you're going to move more than 2x the units. Something to keep in mind. However, when it comes to taking advantage of sales and things of that nature, you're going to be at an inherently lower price, and so if you come in down there, it's only going to get lower. So price is something that you definitely have to manage. Understand that sub 10, sub $5 price point, very popular. A lot more people are going to buy, and it's going to work out from a revenue and units perspective. But you're never going to have your chance to price higher again, and your sales are going to be what I would say are more ineffective because there's just not as many dollars for someone to save. When it comes to conversion, just to set some expectation, if you guys have different experiences or opinions, if you can get 1 out of 20 people who come to your website to buy your product, that's really good. If you can get somewhere around 2.5% to buy, hey, that's solid. When you're below that, those are when you want to be tweaking and trying to work with your message and try and get those conversions up. Understand, key part of conversion is this dynamic right here. That's price. Great message. If you're out of price position, you're not going to be able to do. You're not going to be able to impact that conversion rate a whole lot. If you want to talk about price, love to talk over there, wherever. Or if you have questions, I'll tell you what we experienced.
I can vouch for this.
So right now we are in a little bit of a quiet period. I mean, we have all of our normal engines running with regard to 5 Guardians, but we have been focused on trying to move to Champions of Canaan. That's the new game. And so when I get back Monday morning, we're going to start ramping up the machinery and moving on Champions. But I would say with regard to engagement, going back to that CRM and that tier-based system, again, you want to build out that tier 3, try and come up with as many big guys as you possibly can. Maybe you filter it out because you fear they cuss too much or they do sex too much or whatever. But at any rate, come up with your tier 3 targets, go out and be consistent with reaching them on a monthly basis through a MailChimp or something like that with a mass distribution system. Again, you're trying to drive them, unless you're on Steam, you're trying to drive them to your website or your content, provide them with your press kit. So I would say those are the kind of things. And then social media, that's where you want to start with the kernel of your community, of who you are, what you're about, friends. I'll join every community here and I'll try and help you out every way I can in terms of creating engagement. The one comment that I would make when it comes to engagement is when you start, it is hard to grow and produce engagement at the same time. And so oftentimes when you're starting, a lot of your messages are around join and get involved and check us out, and providing a message that people can latch on to, comment on, be a part of is a little challenging when you're starting out. So just understand, if you have good growth rates with regard to your social media, your engagement is probably going to be low. That's somewhat inversely proportional. And as growth slows down, you can take that as an opportunity to try and ramp up with things that generate more engagement, like campaigns and click this and animated GIFs of who are you, and yeah. All right, well, hey, thank you, Tim, sorry. Thank you. and I'll make the slides available. You guys are gonna get a hold of those distributors Monday morning. Email. We're gonna blast them with the product category of Christian Games. Okay.